we're not doing the hello at the same time. Not the Shark Tank style.
All right, well...
Okay, you can do it.
Okay, hello. Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power. For those who are watching on YouTube, this is a new but temporary setup. Garrett and I have moved to a new home, and we're really excited because we want to start recording a much more elevated and refined and polished podcast. Because last time we were just recording on our couch. We are also recording on a couch.
It's a better couch.
But for those who do watch, you'll notice that there will be a lot more polish and refinement to our podcast. Yes. The way it looks, the way it sounds. And we're super excited for it.
And we've had some amazing guests, and we have more cool guests coming up. So I am so excited to take this podcast to the next level. It's also been such a cool mechanism to connect with people we normally don't connect with, but we look up to. Actually, yesterday we interviewed one of my absolute favorite podcast hosts. Her podcast, Dream Your Life, was probably in my top 5 or top 2 or 3 in 2024. She's incredible. Anyway, I'll let you watch it.
Yeah, we're very excited to publish that
in the next few weeks.
I had a blast on that convo.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
But
Me too. It was my So I'm also selfishly motivated to up level this podcast because then we can invite incredible people.
Yeah. But for today, we wanted to cover a topic that comes up every now and then in our client work, and we get asked this in our Q&As, but how do you handle when you've been shown disrespect by the company? There are cases where our clients will come to us and say, this company I applied to, they're so disrespectful, or they're just being so aggressive. Right. And do they realize how much experience I have? Like all and they get very worked up.
And they start listening to us. And we're like, we already know you're amazing. They're like, do they know I'm a world-class AI researcher? There's only a couple people like me in the world.
Or like I was C-suite at the startup, and I've built a team of 200 people, and they don't see how much value I bring. Very understandable for people to feel that way, because when you're job searching, you're just so invested. You put so much of yourself into it. Not just is it very tiring, but you're making yourself a bit vulnerable by applying to these jobs. Right. And when you feel like you're not seen, of course, we've all been there when we're applying to jobs. So from a negotiations perspective, we wanted to cover how to handle these situations. If a company, whether it's the recruiter, hiring manager, if it's a startup, the founders or whatnot, if they seem to be showing you disrespect or responding in very negative ways, how do you handle that situation?
Right. And I want to say most of the negotiation tips we share, we actually truly believe that should be our mindset. Sometimes it is more of a tactical tip, like if you do this, you will face a better outcome, even though you might not feel like doing it this way. Let me give some examples. If you are shown disrespect, we truly believe that you want to give the other party the benefit of the doubt. First, as simple as they're human, they might be having a terrible day. Who knows what's happening on their end? But it's also tactically advantageous for you to give them the benefit of the doubt, because generally, when someone is rude or disrespectful, the other party is also rude or combative. But if you don't meet that with being combative or rude, now you're catching them off guard. Oh, this person is different and they're so nice even when I'm being rude. People usually know that they're being rude. So you might surprise them, pleasantly surprise them. And what that means is very often that translates into them either giving you a better offer, advocating for you, being nicer in the future, and all that.
This first thing about assuming best intent, the reason why it benefits you when you're negotiating is you genuinely may not know what's happening on the other side. Maybe the recruiter you're talking to is under extreme pressure. Maybe they're just having an off day.
We have to keep our side of the street clean. And regardless of what they're doing, not only is the right thing to do, where you're not a rude person and just don't be rude, but it's also strategically the best move to not be rude back, because it keeps the interactions as positive as possible. Even though the other party is being rude, you are keeping them positive, and that means that you are ensuring that you get the best possible outcome as well from the negotiations. Another thing to keep in mind when someone is being disrespectful and rude, Honestly, sometimes it's rare in this day and age, but sometimes it could be a test. How you perform under pressure, or if you are entitled and things like that. Because, sometimes I've actually seen cases where, let's say a recruiter will straight up be like, that sounds entitled, or call you out on something that you didn't even mean in a certain way. But the more you stay calm and collected under pressure, the more you show them who you are, and you also minimize any risk and you maximize any positive outcomes. So, all in all, the best move when the other party is rude or disrespectful is you stay calm and collected, give them the benefit of the doubt, and we promise you that that will give you the best possible outcome in negotiations. This is especially true with recruiters. The way job offer negotiations work generally is that a recruiter will have to go and advocate for you, and they're also the middle person between you and the company. Whatever you say and do, they can color the team's judgment on how they perceive you. So it's very important to be extremely nice, cordial, and professional with recruiter or whoever you're negotiating with, especially if they're not the decision maker. I mean, of course, obviously, if they're the decision maker, you want to be as professional as possible. But if they're not the decision maker, now you're playing kind of telephone. It's important for you to make sure you are very calm, collected, and professional, because they will relay how they perceive you to hiring committee or anyone else who is a decision maker.
Concur with all that. Now, I think there's a point at which, though, if you just continue to be treated very disrespectfully, at what point do you draw the line? So we're not saying that no matter how you're treated, just continue to put a smile on your face and respond positively. What we're saying is when you're first shown, when you feel disrespected at first, assume best intent. Don't take it as a pattern at first sight, but take it as a data point, because you're also information collecting on, is this the company? Is this the role that I want to be taking? So take it as a internal mental note. Now, if they continue to do it and you see it emerge as a pattern, then that should go into part of your calculus as to whether you want to work at this company or not, right?
Yeah. The way I approach scenarios like that, I'm like, what if this is a social experiment? How do I want to show up? Whenever I find something jarring or surprising, and if someone's being disrespectful, I play this sort of mental game with myself. If this is a social experiment, how do I want to show up? It's like, you know what? I always want to keep my side of the street clean, as opposed to if I feel like I'm being baited, I guess, then fall for it. Actually, let me show you. I can be professional, calm, collected, and nice, even when it's very obvious that you're being rude.
Yeah. Anything else?
I wanted to add semi-tangential point, but basically a very interesting interactions I've had, especially early in my career when I was negotiating. The audience might remember we always say, do not give a number. What would happen early in my career a lot is the recruiters would pressure me a lot to give a number. This happened all the time, but I had with 3 different recruiters during a certain job search years ago. They would ask me, what's your preferred number? What's your preferred range? What's your preferred salary? And I would just dodge it in different ways. And they eventually, after maybe asking me 3, 4, 5 times, they would start laughing. So there is a component of negotiations that is strategic, and it's a little bit of a game, actually. It has some rules. They're kind of playing a role, which is I need to ask this person 4 or 5 times, because usually what happens is they will relent at some point. And I showed that I didn't relent, and they're like, okay, she knows how to play this game. And they will start laughing in a kind of like a, okay, she gets it. Not that it's the same thing as someone being rude, but sometimes when you hold your side of things the way you had planned to, and the way it is the most strategically sound, you will see that the other party acknowledges your professionalism or your strategy, and they appreciate it. There's a meta layer that's happening in interactions where they might end up really appreciating how you played the first layer.
So to sum up, If you experience disrespect from the other side when you are negotiating, first assume best intent.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume that it's a pattern when you first encounter it. Just take it as a data point for yourself. If it continues and you start noticing it as a pattern, then perhaps that presents a red flag, and that's something that should go into your decision making as to whether you want to continue with the negotiation or accept this offer or make the deal happen.
Well, on that note, I wanted to say I hear this from a lot of clients when, let's say, a recruiter is being very unprofessional or rude or disrespectful. They say this is a red flag for the company. Sometimes it is, but for big companies, I don't think it necessarily is for various reasons. So let's take, for example, Meta. Meta is a huge company. First of all, they have hundreds of recruiters. Not everyone is gonna represent the company really well. Number one. Number two is you go into a team, if you're matched to a team, and then you'll probably never work with that recruiter ever again. So that recruiter might not represent your team to begin with. Maybe the recruiting team is disrespectful or whatever, but you might never work with that recruiter ever again. So overall, I wouldn't necessarily deduce just how a recruiter is behaving that that's what your experience is going to be like at the company. I think for smaller companies too, if they're super small, maybe they didn't have the resources to hire someone who met their bar and they had to move quickly on that. So I wouldn't necessarily let the recruiter behavior represent what your experience at that company would be like. I would take it as a data point, like you said, but collect other data points as well. Do you like your hiring manager? Do you like your peers? Do you like the stakeholders you would work with? I would sort of put it into context rather than necessarily let that color your judgment of the company.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's important to bring it back to your priorities. So let's say you had a negative interaction with a recruiter. That may not necessarily speak to what your entire experience will be there if you do accept the offer, because maybe your priorities are, well, does the role still present really good growth opportunities? Have I met really good potential teammates through the interview process? Do I want to do that, the work that this role will be doing? I think of it similar to dating, where people will say, oh, I went on a date with this person, but I didn't do a second date because they ordered tap water. Maybe that means they're cheap. Okay, it's like, all right, this one little data point, you're just going to let it impact the entire decision about the whole relationship moving forward. I think that's you should think about that similarly. If you had one poor interaction with a recruiter, does that mean that the company is a really bad place to work? Probably not. So just keep that in mind and assume best intent. Collect data points along the way. Don't assume that it's a pattern when you first encounter it. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I hope that's clear what we're trying to say. But yeah, would love to get some feedback or questions, and we can expand on this on another episode.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.